And for the sake of the record, we started a little prematurely. I didn't have my recording device. But Hebrews 11, we're dealing with the title of the lesson, Abraham's only begotten son. We just read Hebrews 11, 17, and 18. And basically, like I said, when I was thinking about this lesson, it wasn't necessarily principles. Typically, sometimes I'd be thinking about, like, I was studying different things, and I say, okay, these are certain principles I'd be looking at. This is good, blah, blah, blah. For my own person, I may bring it to for the saints. But this was just more or less just, I found it to be interesting and powerful, impactful, you know. Because when people think about Abraham, they often think that Abraham's only child is Isaac, you know, but that's not true. They may consider Ishmael, so he had Ishmael too. But Abraham had a lot of children, you know. And everybody remembers Abraham being old and not having any children, and God made him a promise, I'm going to bless you, bless thy seed, blah, blah, blah. But, like, what people don't know, like, Abraham had a lot of children. And so when you think about that, it's like, when you think about that and you read the scripture when it talks about his only begotten, like, and at the time, even at the time, he had 2 children. He had more than one. So then how is this his only begotten? You know? And so and maybe it's kind of start looking at some things. I mean, the answer's right here in the text, but it maybe just kind of look at things closely. You know, I thought it was interesting. So you look at Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12, 1 through 3. And I've taught a lesson about Abraham before. Maybe it was with I think it may have been with the brothers though. And you know, you can look at Abraham and the faith that he displayed, and it's really, really powerful. It's a really powerful thing. Verse 12 says, "Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them." Genesis chapter 12, 1 through 3. He says, look, I'm in verse 3 now. "And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." And Abraham departed, and the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years when he departed out of Haran. And so when you look at this, he's 75 years old, and it's really, in order for you to really understand and grasp how Abraham's story progresses, you have to really look at it from a realistic perspective. Like anything and everything else in the scriptures, you know. This man is 75 years old. He has a wife. They don't have any children. It's not from a lack of trying. It's just that they would have never conceived a child. All of a sudden, God comes to him and he tells them that he's going to make him a great nation, you know. And 75 years is a real 75 years. It's not like, you know, like some type of like, well, their years is different than ours. Like, this cat hair gray. He got white hair. You know what I mean? So he didn't have any children. You know what I mean? He has 0 kids. And so when God is saying he's going to make him a great nation, it takes a great bit of faith for Abraham to believe God. Because, like I said, it's not that, like, you know, everybody in the world, people in the world are having children. And they have it the conventional way that people have children. He's doing the same things that other people are doing in order to have children. And they ain't having no kids. You know what I mean? And so God always tell him when he old already, hey, we're gonna make you a great nation, all that. That's kind of weird. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, man, maybe I'm tripping, I'm dreaming or something like that. You know? But God makes this promise. Now turn over to Genesis chapter 13 again. He reemphasizes this promise that he's going to make. Genesis 13 and verse 14. "And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up thy eyes and look for the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward." He says, "For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that a man can number, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. And so, once again, God makes His promise, or He reiterates His promise that He makes to Abraham about the seed that He's going to give. You look over to chapter 16. Let's go to chapter 16. And I want to kind of lay the foundation for when we go into this the meat of the story and the lesson, so you can really understand how profound the situation is. Verse 16 in chapter 16, verse 1. It says in Genesis chapter 16, verse 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. So once again, they still haven't had any children. God has made this promise. He still hasn't had any children. And she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And so he had been there 10 years. So God had made this promise to Abraham. He'd been moving around for 10 years now, and still no baby, still no child, And that's a real 10 years. And I often look at when the Bible gives you time frames and years and things of that nature, like we're sometimes our understanding is sometimes dampened because we read the story from beginning to end. Like we'll read a whole person's life in like 2 chapters. You know what I mean? Like as far as like if they're mentioned, you may read about David. It may take you to a book, 2 books, but you read his whole life and then he's from beginning to end, and that's it. You're like, oh yeah, like David, But like his life is actually like your life. It's just that the Spirit is taking that excerpts from his life, and we look at these things. But he lived day to day, minute to minute, moment to moment, just like we live. And so when you see this, God has made a promise to Abraham that He's going to bless him. He's going to have a seed, and he's going to be a great nation. It's been 10 years, and they still haven't had any children. They're still doing the things that human beings do in order to have children, but nothing's happening. And so Sarai gets a bright idea because she gets impatient. She starts to try to come up, she starts to use her reasoning to start trying to figure out what it is that God meant and start trying to come up with answers. Because and it's the same thing that we do. Patience is something that's difficult for human beings. Especially you may say, I can wait a month. I may be able to wait 3 months. I may be able to wait a year. I may be able to wait 3 years. But then as time continues to go by, day after day, day after day, day after day, you start to, your faith starts to fade. Your patience starts to wear thin. Then you start trying to find ways to kind of speed up the process. And so that's the plan that Abraham comes up with. Sarah comes up with. Abraham agrees with it. He goes to the lady. She conceives. She brings forth a child. He's a son. And so you drop down to verse 15. It says, verse 15, And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abraham. So when God called Abram out of the land of his father, he was 75. When Ishmael was born, he's 86. It's 11 years, And so all this time, now you're thinking about this man's 86 years old. They've been trying to have children, and now they come up with a plan. It works. He bears a child. It's a son, an heir. Take over his name. Take over whatever take over and give his inheritance to. You got to think the man is excited. He's happy. You know what I mean? it worked, man. I got a kid. I can't believe it. You know, you blow your mind. You know what I mean? God told him this 11 years ago. And now it finally it's come to pass. You know, in his head. You know.
That's not what God told him.
Yeah, amen. No, okay, yeah. Sister said in the back, that's not what God told him. I say amen. That's right. And you know, and that goes into, that's why the title lesson, keep in mind the title lesson, God, Abraham's only begotten son. And that's key. Because when you really start to dig deep into this lesson and really into the story, it's really powerful. Because you have to look at God's long-term planning and God's timing. Because God makes his promise, and God said, like, I guess for me tomorrow, like, man, I'm gonna bless you. You know what I mean? I'm gonna make you a great nation. Your seed gonna be like the sand, like the dirt on the earth. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. And this is the land I'm gonna give you, and da 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 da. And you're to your inheritance that come after you, da 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 da. Like, and God like laying it down, you know. But years are passing and nothing is happening, you know. But God shot it out like it's gonna be like, I got you. You know what I mean? But that's a part of faith that this lesson for sure teaches, and it's really important that you can get it. That faith requires patience. You see what I'm saying? Because God don't work on the same time frame that we work on. But God is for sure when He says what He says, He means it. And He says it's coming. It's a matter of can your faith hold till He give it to you. You know what I mean? And you don't start wavering and start like falling. Now, Abraham is an old man. You know what I mean? He don't know how much time he got left. Like, let's just be real. Everybody don't live, you know, people die. Like, it's not like, I don't mean to be funny, but he don't know how much time he got. And he's already lived some years on the earth already. So he don't know how much time he got left. But God is talking about making him, giving him kids and all this kind of stuff. That's a young man's dream. I'm old now. I ain't got a whole lot of time to waste here. And 11 years going by, still nothing happening. Cats start panicking, you know what I mean? And that's how you can learn. We learn a lot from this lesson as far as faith and patience and faith. You have to have. You have to have patience and faith, because when God says, God already know. God don't panic. God know exactly what it is He got for you. He don't concern Himself about how old you are. It's just a matter of, do you believe me? That's all God care about. You believe me? That's it.
Brother teacher, I was sitting back here smiling because I was thinking about you all into my lesson next week. Because when you were explaining about, it's part in my lesson where I'm talking about about faith. And you know, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And when we walk by faith and not by sight, because sight looks scary. But in my lesson I was bringing out about how, you know, the song said, Jesus will fix it after a while. But He'll fix it after a while on His time, not ours. And that's what you're bringing out. And I was sitting there smiling about how you've gone, you know, into my lesson. Because it's by faith. And that's what we have to stand in. Sometimes we just have to stand in faith. Because what God told him at the beginning is exactly what's going to happen. But it's by faith. See, and you know, another thing while I have the mic, you know, it was saying that we remember the part where Sarah laughed. Shall I pleasure my master in old age? But you know, another thing need to be brought up in 17 and 17. Now, Abraham is, I hope I'm not going too fast. Okay, but Abraham was 90 years old, and when we look at 17 and 17, it says, then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? So he too doubted. And you know, we always put up about how the woman laughed. She doubted. But the man doubted too.
That is funny. That is funny. People always say that. Yeah, she doubted. She laughed. And people say, but yeah, keep reading down. You see her. She wasn't the only one snickering and carrying. That's a very good point. Yeah, but when you think about that, and excellent point, sister, Abraham is 99 years old now. Like I said, it's always important to keep time frame and ages are given and stuff like this. It's important to keep track of that. God made this promise to him 24 years ago. You know what I mean? He came out of the land at 75. He's 99 now, and God is still talking about this promise He's gonna give him. And the boy you got is not the one. You know what I mean? Because that wasn't God's plan. God never said anything about take a handmaid and about it was gonna be through your wife that you're gonna get this seed and it's gonna multiply. That's what it is. And so and they received circumcision. Matter of fact, okay, we start at 17. Genesis 17, verse 1. It says, and when Abram was 90 years and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name be any more called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto them and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And he said, and God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generation. And this is. See, I'm getting a little sidetracked, but it's still in the realm of the lesson. I start getting kind of excited sometimes. But in Galatians, we can go there. We hold your finger. We're coming back to Genesis chapter 17. I want to go to Galatians chapter 3. Let's see. He says, Galatians chapter 3 and verse 16. He says, Now to Abraham and to his seed were the promises made. He said not, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Christ. And so he says, when God talks to Abraham, he says, to thee and thy seed. And he makes his promise to Abraham and his seed. And it's always a singular seed. The seed is always singular. And I was mentioning earlier that Abraham had many other children. But he doesn't say seeds. He always mentions seed, one. It's always singular what this promise is referred to. And so, that's important because Abraham already has a son at this time. But God is still making promises. And the son that he got is not included in that. The son that he got has been circumcised already, which is a sign of covenant. But God does not have the covenant with Ishmael, which is what it is. Because he's still talking about promise and it's to come. It's not present. And Abraham, so they're saying he's showing that Ishmael is not included in that. It's not included in this promise, this covenant that he's talking about making, and with this seed forever and all this kind of stuff. And so, we can drop down to verse 15. Going back to Genesis 17 and 15. For those just coming in, the title of the lesson is Abraham's Only Begotten Son. Genesis 17 and 15. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Then Abraham got a lesson. This verse 17, as Sister pointed out. And then Abraham fell on his face and laughed. And he said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear? You know. And Abraham said unto God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee." You know. And so that's what we were talking about. Like I said, even like people get all like twisted up and everything in their minds when they read about Genesis chapter 4, and they start reading about the ages of these people that lived. And he lived to 887 years, and he lived 927 years, and all this kind of, you know, and we be like, whoa, you know, we blow our mind when we think about cats living forever, like Mumra or something. They just live for the ever living. But even at that time, a year is still the same amount of time as a year that we live. You know what I mean? And so Abraham understands how much 100 years is. You know what I mean? He understands 90 years old. He understands cats ain't having no babies at no 100 years old. Because sometimes people get the notion that like time is different then. That's why they count time different. That's why Noah is 500 years old and blah, blah, blah. Like they keep time different. They're not that old. No, yeah, cats old. Like, this is what it is. They living like that, you know. But Abraham is acknowledging, like, just like if we knew somebody that was 100 years old, you like, man, that cat, he dried up, man. It's dust. He say, it ain't no more. You know what I mean? It's a barren land. You know what I mean? A lady 90 years old, you ain't got to worry about throwing her no planning her baby shower. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if I'm 90 year old want no baby at that time. Anyway, don't mind me. But like I said, that's why Abraham laughs. He laughs. Man, you think a 100-year-old man can have some baby? And his wife 90, she gonna be having kids? And just like we think, like, man, please, these guys ain't finna. I don't see it. These guys ain't getting down like this. Even with a young woman, 100-year-old man, they finna be out here, bringing forth fruit. But so then he says, 18, Abraham said unto God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee." And like I said, it's so important that you understand the situation. Ishmael was born to him when he's 86. That in and of itself is an amazing thing. That in and of itself is mind-blowing. Like an 86-year-old man having babies, he making the news. So that's going viral in today's time. People will say it's a hoax. Say they photoshopped it. You know what I mean? That's what we gonna say when we saw it. But for him, for this man to be able to have a baby at 86, and he ain't never had no child before, you gotta think he loved that boy. Like, man, it ain't that he hates children. You have some people say, "I don't want no kids ever." You know what I mean? They have dogs. You know what I mean? We got Pomeranians and stuff. That's what we have. We don't want no kids. You know what I mean? So that's cool, I guess. Whatever. But he wanted a child. And it took him 86 years, and he got one. I think he excited about that. And the fact that God is saying, like, he's saying, "Oh, the Ishmael," like, he don't hate Ishmael. He ain't like, that raggedy boy, get him out of here. Like, he loved that boy, And he said, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee." That he can be the one, man. That he, let him just be, like, in essence, he ain't looking for another one. Like, I got this one. If he can be the one, let him live before you. Like, we pushing it here. I mean, it was already something for me to be 86 and have one. You talking about a 100-year-old cat having one? Like, listen, we ain't got to go, like, push the limits here. Ishmael might live before you. You know what I mean? And he says, and God says, "Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard thee. I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year." And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And so he says, "No, it's not going to be Ishmael. You're going to have a son next year about the same time. His name going to be Isaac." That's what it is. So like I said, when you think all the way back to the beginning, this is 25 years in the making here. 25 years have passed since he first said, I'm gonna make you a great nation. You know what I mean? I'm going to multiply thy seed. You know, I'm going to make your land, I'm going to make the people like the dust of the earth. It's been 25 years. You know what I mean? In that time, they didn't came up with a plan, and their plan worked. Like, they got a boy. You know what I mean? Ishmael can't grow up, man. And there's some issues in the house, but what house doesn't have trouble? You know, you know what I mean? But like, you know, they came up with a plan, and hey, man, they got this boy, man. Look, man, he big, he grown, like he got no issues. Like, let him just be the one. Like, nah. And so he says, so like I said, they've been waiting this long. They already got this boy, but God says next year, you're going to have this boy. I'm going to have a covenant with him. You see what I'm saying? And like I said, I want us to be able to really understand the gravity of that. Because those of us that have children, I'll put it like this. We'll keep it straight. We're going to run it straight. You have children in your mind. In your mind, you have a set amount of time. You're going to say, we're going to have kids from this age to this age. Right? You know what I mean? And we're going to raise these children, whatever. If you get one kid out of it and things don't work out, you're going to love that kid. Now, love him. You're going to watch him grow up. You watch him crawl on the ground. You see him stand up, take his first steps. You're excited. Wow. Y'all get to play around, run around a little bit. You know what I mean? Play whatever games they played back then with their kids. Remember, you watch this cat grow up, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You get comfortable. You know what I mean? You get comfortable with having this one kid around. Hey, Ishmael, go get me this. Go fetch me that. Whatever. Then all of a sudden, you ain't thinking you going to have no more kids. You were lucky to get that one. And all of a sudden, God say, I'm going to give you the one. I'm going to give you the one next year. And God is still shooting like, I'm going to make you a great nation and da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? And you like, I'm 100 years old. You know what I mean? Like, I got a son. It's Ishmael. He love him. He don't think he like subpar. He like, man, I like him. I love him. Like, so said that you love him. You know what I mean? I got a relationship with him. You know? God says, I heard you. He'll be a great, I'll bless him. He'll be a great nation. 12 princes will come out of him. But I'm not having a covenant with him. So Abraham loved him. You know what I mean? Like, but God said, I don't want him. You know what I mean? And so now God is saying, next year you're going to have a kid. That's going to be the one. So when you start talking about faith, you start talking about faith. You have to trust God. Amen. Like, regardless to what you think and how you feel, and what you think the best plan may be, or what you may think the best idea may be, or how you feel about all parties involved in the situation, like, you have to trust God. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. Like your assessment of the situation, Abraham's assessment is that Ishmael should be good enough. Because Abraham liked Ishmael. But God's assessment is like, no, I don't want Ishmael. I'm not going to have no covenant with him. Matter of fact, he's not a part of the plan at all. Like, that was something y'all came up with. I didn't come up with that. You know what I mean? Like, in a year's time, you're going to have a baby by your wife. By your real wife. You know what I mean? And so, okay. My brother, go ahead.
Yeah, selective hearing. Abraham had selective hearing because you just said it right there. He developed his own plan, and maybe he just didn't hear the part that it was going to be by your own wife. You know, that's how we do stuff sometimes. We have selective hearing. You know, even in just physical stuff, we do stuff because we thought we heard it one way. And then we kind of suffer because now we got to wait and adjust it and do it the other way because the other way didn't work, you know.
Amen.
Amen, my brother. Let's go.
Brother, when I look at Genesis, the 16th chapter, and Abraham knew what God had told him in the beginning. But what Abraham did, he listened to his wife. It says, now Sarah, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarah said unto Abram, now Abram knew what God had told him. He said, behold, now the Lord has restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarah. And it makes me go back. We know Genesis is a book of beginnings, going back to Adam and Eve. Adam knew what God had told him, but he listened to who? He listened to his wife. And see, when we take and don't listen to what God has said, that's brothers, sisters in the Lord. When we listen to, we don't listen to what God said and put man over what God, there are going to be consequences. Because we're going to see, it wasn't all, we glossing over it, but it wasn't all good now. Remember, it came jealousy. Now she had him to go in there and lay with the handmaiden, right? But then it was some issues after that, because that's exactly right. Because see, when you take and you intercede and you go against what God, just like sin, God has given us the gift of forgiveness. And when we repent of it, God said, I will forgive you and throw it away. But there are consequences for sin. Something as simple as lying all the time. And you've repented of that. You're no longer a liar. But there are others that still may think of you as a liar. They may question what you're saying. So when you take, and when God has said a thing, that's what we need to make sure we stay focused on, is what God has said. Because when you intercede, and that's what he did, he loved him. But it was some issues, and then it ended up with him the child being sent away. But see, God protected that child too, though.
Amen.
But the bottom line is, there are consequences for sin. And in both of these cases, the man listened to the woman over what God has said. Now, do you know what that says to us sisters that I get from it? Sisters, beware. God has given us the spirit of influence. Use your influence for the good, not the bad. And that's why we see examples of, and we see what God is going. God is not going to be mocked whatsoever. That's exactly right. Let God be true and every man a lie. Because what happened? That child still came right through who God said.
Amen.
You know, too, right here what Sister Carr was reading, something very interesting. It kind of goes back to what Brother Henson had just said earlier. She knew in verse number 2, she said, and Sarai said unto Abraham, behold now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing. That word in there, restrained me. See, sometimes that's how we do. We don't say, well, it's a reason why God hasn't given me children yet, so I'm going to just wait on the Lord. And if it's his will, I'll have one. But no, we have to devise a plan of our own and go forward, even though he said, she knew in her heart, she says, he has restrained me. But he had a time set already for her. That just wasn't the time. But he had restrained her, but it was for another purpose and another reason, and to his glory, and not for when it was their time, but God's.
Amen. Amen.
I was gonna just touch on what Sister Carr mentioned. A lot, like we look at the lessons. You look at the lessons in the Bible about men and women and their interaction with each other, the influences they have on each other, and things of that nature. And it all comes down, like, sisters can look at that lesson and learn from that. Like I said, you talk about the influence, but also the self-control and the patience. And like, because see, it's beyond just Eve telling him, hey man, this is good fruit. You know what I mean? Like, or hey man, let's go into Hagar, the Sarah. You know what I mean? It's something inside of those women that caused them to make the decision that they made in the first place. You know what I mean? And that's what you can learn from. You know what I mean? Like their fear or their impatience or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to influence your husband, but it's also one thing to strengthen yourself. You know what I mean? And so when you look at the example, you see how they failed. You say, okay, I'm going to learn from that. You know what I mean? And not to make the mistake that she made. Not only for my husband's sake, but for my own. Because at the end of the day, as Sister Carl says always eloquently, well, you know, going to heaven is a solo trip. It's a solo thing. You know what I mean? And so even if you don't take, even if Eve doesn't take the apple, take the fruit and give it to her husband, she still failed because of the bad decision she made, because she was susceptible to being deceived. You know what I mean? Even if Abraham doesn't go into Hagar, the fact that Sarah suggested is a problem for Sarah. You see what I'm saying? Because of her lack of faith, because of her impatience. So you say you look at the lesson and take it one step further than just, okay, don't become a stumbling block for your husband, which is like amen on that too. But look at for self and say, okay, how can I learn from that example and not follow that example? How did she get there in the first place? And let me make sure I learn from that. You see what I'm saying? And make self-improvement. You know what I mean? Now y'all come on now. Hey man, I got so much trying to get to that. Y'all in here. You went to my list. I was going to chapter 2.
And two, when we look, and two, when we look at God's written word, we see how we need each other. God is the head of Christ. Christ is the head of man. Man is the head of woman. But yet each of us have our sphere in which we are to work in. And when I look at, when I was bringing it out, that's why I was bringing that out about, we remember when Sarah said, shall I pleasure my Lord in his old age? And we remember that the woman laughed. But do we remember that the man laughed as well? That's what I was. Do you see, man is weak. He gave in both times. But God spoke directly to who? He spoke to the man. And the woman, she fell too. We need each other, but yet going to heaven is personal. And that's why we stay focused on God's word. Encourage one another as we go along this race. But understand, that's why it's so important. That is the one thing that from the first time that I met Brother Ozan and sitting under his teachings, he say, stick with the book. Stick with the book. You know, because that's the truth. God's word is truth. All God's word is truth. And we have to go in there, rightly divide, and study for ourselves. But man in himself is fallen. We need Christ. We need God. Amen. And we need him every day to be what God would have us to be. And I like how you brought that out in the lesson too. Even at our best, our righteousness, or maybe it was Brother Ozan this morning, our righteousness will never exceed that of God.
Amen. Amen. Now, I'm going to touch it a little bit and I'm going to try to move on without, getting caught up. But we look at, a lot of times, and this is something we really need to get away from men and women especially, men and women, I'll say. A lot of times we villainize women in the Bible. You know what I mean? We look at the flaws that women, or the failures that women have, and we glorify them. And it's like, and when you're reading the scriptures, you're going to have good and bad examples in the Bible. That's right. And you have to be able to learn from those. You follow the good examples, you learn from the bad examples and see, okay, how they failed, what they messed up on, and you try to fortify yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're a woman, or you're a man too. You know what I mean? Like Abraham did something silly and went into this whole other woman and had a baby. You weren't supposed to do that. What are you doing? You know what I mean? It's a bad decision on Abraham's part. It causes issues. And you have to learn from that. You read this and yeah, Abraham messed up there. But you don't throw Abraham away like Abraham is trash. You know what I mean? Because he is your father in the faith. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't get around that. You know what I mean? Sarah did a silly thing when she suggested going to Hagar. But according to Peter, you are her daughters. Those of you that are daughters of faith, like you still have to respect the fact, her faith that she has in God, and that God has deemed her faithful in his sight. You know what I mean? And so what I'm saying is that when you read the scriptures not only for the good examples, you read the scriptures and you learn from the mistakes that these people made too, to make improvements to yourself. It's not to sit there and criticize these people, because they people. You make mistakes, they make mistakes too. It's what it is. But you learn from their failures to strengthen yourself, because that's the reason why it's written. It's not written to shame this person, to be like, talk bad, like, to make that person look bad per se. It's written so that, as an example, to show, to learn from it. That's what it's about. You know what I mean? A person may give you an example of something they did wrong in their life. They're not giving you that example so you can tear them down. You know what I'm saying? They give you that example so that you can learn from it, and so that you can make a better decision in the future in your life. You know what I mean? You may give somebody an example of somebody that you love. I may talk about my dad and say, hey, my daddy did this, this, and that in his family, and this is what the result of that was. I'm not giving you that information so you can go back and talk about my daddy and like, you know what I mean, like rip him apart. I'm giving that example. I'm giving that information so that you can make improvements in your life for your benefit. You know what I mean? And so when I'm saying that, I'm saying sometimes people villainize Eve and they villainize Sarah and say, oh yeah, she laughed, or she told him to go into the womb. Yeah, she made a mistake. She did. She made a bad decision. And you learn from that how she made that decision, but you can't make Sarah a villain. Because her story is complete, and she's found faithful. You still working towards it. And so when you're reading the scriptures, make sure that you understand that fact. That when you read the errors that people make, especially the righteous people, that you understand what this lesson is, what it's there for. It's not there for you to justify yourself and make yourself look better than that person. It's not there for you to look down on that person. It's written, God wrote it about somebody that he says is faithful, so that you can read it as an example to grow from. And so that's what I was saying earlier, as far as sisters, when you read these lessons about Sarah and the error that she made, you read about Eve, or you read about different people in the Bible that made a bad decision, that you take it because you're a woman too.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're susceptible to the same error.
Yes.
Like, these women aren't just some type of like lily flower, like blowing in the wind. Like, they are women just like susceptible to the same feelings and emotions that you are. When you read about a man, you read about David and the decision he made with Bathsheba, and the decision he decision that he made after that. Like, you can't look at that and be like, man, fool, he trash. I mean, you know what I mean? You have to look at that and understand, like, I'm a man just like David is.
Yes.
And David is a strong fella.
Yes.
He's grown. He's shown some strength in God. You know what I mean? That all of us, we take these lessons about David and Goliath and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's powerful, man. Wow, he killed and slayed the giant. You know what I mean? He's a real dude. You're a young man making decisions in faith. So when you see him fail, you should be cautious about that. It ain't written for you to just make fun of David and like talk bad about him.
Amen.
It's written so that you can take heed and be like, man, okay, I need to watch myself. Because if David can fall like this, and how did he get there? I need to be careful in life as I approach different situations, that I make sure I have my mindset right. Because I'm a man like David. And if David can fall like that, considering how much faith he had, then I need to make sure that I watch myself, that I don't fall in the same manner. So, Genesis chapter... no, I mean, I want you to get your third. I knew when I started, I said, I'm finna open up a can. Yeah, I know. But I'm trying to get this lesson done. Okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was thinking about maybe Brother Hamilton can help me with this scripture, because he's the one who shared it with me, or somebody else. Remember when David did something that he wasn't supposed to do, and somebody mocked him, and he was saying that maybe that he's doing this to me because of what I did, and he let him go ahead and do it, but God dealt with him. But I was just thinking about when Sister Carl was saying, if you're a liar and someone may look at you and it's true because of consequences. But I was just giving encouragement to anybody, because you never know what you're going through in life. And if you have messed up and you find yourself as anyone in the scriptures, you know that you have to have understanding. And David had that same understanding that maybe maybe God is allowing this to happen to me because of what I did. But David still, he didn't take away his love for God or his righteousness or his allegiance to God, because he still loved God. So you could still move forward and press on after you mess up, or however people look at you, because God is still your Father. And those that love the Lord and have a relationship with God, they will love you too.
They understand.
And that's why I qualified it before I even made the statement, say that forgiveness is a gift. And it's a gift from God. Because forgiveness not only frees you of whatever with that person or hurt or whatever, it frees them, but it frees you as well. Amen. But shall we sin that grace may abound? So that is an encouragement to let us know we don't have to sin. But if we sin, we have an advocator that will forgive us if we're truly repentant.
Amen.
But there are, and that's what the Bible shows, the examples of there are consequences for sin. Because if Abram would have listened to God from the beginning, the issue that became between Sarah and the bondmaiden would not have been. But yet, I'm Sarah's daughter. So it's an encouragement. Shall we sin that grace may abound?
Amen.
No.
Amen. Genesis chapter 21. Can I get 10 minutes? Can I get 10 minutes? I know we past time. So don't try to run up out of here now. Yeah. Genesis chapter 21. And I'll make this quick. Okay, so he said a year later you're going to have your son. You know what I mean? He says, and the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time in which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son which he bore unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God had made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. This is I can't walk over this. This is powerful, man, because Abraham loves his wife, right? You know what I mean? Like a woman's desire is to give her husband children. You know what I mean? That's a part of her function. You know what I mean? And like they've been trying for a long time, you know. And she got impatient. He said, "Okay, I'm gonna give it to Hagar. Let Hagar bear a child." You know what I mean? And if you read carefully, she says, "Maybe Hagar can bear me a child for my husband." That was the thought process. Is that she's going to be able to bear her husband children through Hagar. That's what Sarah was thinking. That's what she wanted. You see what I'm saying? And you go back and read 16. And so, for her to be 90 years old, and for her to be able to have a child for her husband, that's special. Yes. And I can't even put it into words. If you understand like I said, if you just understand how momentous that is. Like they've been trying all this time, and she thinking that's why she laughs, because she thinking ain't no way she gonna be able to have a child for her husband. You see what I'm saying? Like you gotta grab that. Her issue is not like she wants to bear a child for her husband, but she can't do it. You know what I mean? That was Rachel's issue. Is that they were barren. Like, you know what I mean? And so for her to be able to have this child is special. That's special, you know. And so and for her, like I said, you have to think about how Abraham loves his wife, and for her to be able to have this child for him, that's special, man. That's special. You know what I mean? They old, and they're able to have this child. He said, for him, who would think that I would be able to give child suck at this age? You know, it's a marvelous thing. It blows your mind. You know what I mean? And even though God had said it a long time ago, it took 25 years for this thing to actually come to pass. That's 25 real years. It's not like, you know what I mean? It ain't like, yeah. And so, verse 9, it says, and Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And this thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. That's what I was saying earlier. Abraham loved Ishmael.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, that's his, I mean, that's his son. Yeah, man. He been waiting 86 years for this. Like, he loved that kid. You know what I mean? So she like, he got to go. And that broke his heart. Like, whoa. You know what I mean? He's struggling with this. He loved this child. You know? And God said, verse 12, and God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of thy bondwoman. And all that Sarah had said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And so we talked about that, talked about the word seed earlier, and God mentioning the word seed always being singular. So God has one seed in particular that he has in mind. Now he says Ishmael is thy seed also. So that's two seeds. But God is only talking about one.
That's right.
Amen. He only had a covenant with one. And so when he talks about God, Abraham's only begotten son, it's not that he has only one child. It's that there's only one child. He has one of a kind.
Amen.
And that there's only one that God has a covenant with. Indeed, he is unique. Because God has a covenant with him and only him.
Amen.
And so when you look at chapter 22, and it comes to this faithful day, and it came to pass at verse 1, after these things that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, behold, here I am. And he said, take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went into the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, abide ye here with the asses, and with the ass, and the lad will go up yonder and worship, and come again to you. So now already in Abraham's mind, he's thinking, we're gonna go up and we're gonna come back. And when you look at this lesson, and when you read in Hebrews, it gives us his mindset about what's going on. And I want to read all the other stuff we read to get to this point, so that you can really understand the psychology of this situation. Because, and we're gonna put a bow on this. At this point, you know, Abraham is over 100 years old. He has one son, an older son, that they booted out the house. He loved that kid. You know what I mean? This is the only kid he got left, and he loved Isaac. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one that God promised him. You know what I mean? And now God is saying, go and sacrifice him. And so he goes up. But finally, Abraham has started to understand faith and understand God. Because his thought process is that God has been making me this promise for over 20-something years. That he is going to bless him with a seed. And through that seed, I will be the father of many nations. And my seed is going to be like the dirt of the earth. But even when I had one before, God said it's not going to be with that one. You see what I'm saying?
Amen.
It's going to be with this one. So when God tells him to go up and sacrifice him, he finally starting to kind of get it. Like, okay, God going to make a way. Because it got to be this one. Because the other one I had wasn't the one. He said, that one ain't going to work. It's going to be the one I'm going to give you. And this is him. So we going up to this mountain. We going to go sacrifice. And I'm going to do whatever God tell me to do. But I trust that God is going to do something with this one. Because it got to be him.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? And so he goes up. And he binds the child. Verse 9. They came to the place where God had told him, I got your hand, sis. And Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order and bound Isaac and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, saying, Abraham, Abraham. He said, Here I am. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And so, like I said, this child is everything for him, because Isaac is the culmination of all the faith that Abraham has shown, that Abraham has put in God. You see what I'm saying? From the first time that God talked to him, he says, "Get you from out your nation." That's 13. That's 12. Come out from your father's people. I'm gonna take you to a place. I'm gonna make you a father of many nations. I'm gonna make you a great nation. You know what I mean? That's 20-something years ago, almost 30 years ago. And so they tried to come up with this plan with Isaac. Okay, maybe we can get the handmaid, and she can raise child for me, son, for me to you, blah, 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 blah. And God like, no, that ain't gonna work. That's not it. I'm gonna make a child from Sarah, and she's gonna bear you a son. His name's gonna be Isaac. God gave him the name. His name will be Isaac. And in him will I make my covenant, and with his seed after him. You see what I'm saying? And so they come to this day, he said, "May go sacrifice him." And like, Isaac is everything. Isaac is God's promise. That's the manifestation of God's promise to Abraham. That I'm going to give you a kid. Not just any kid, but a kid out of Sarah. The old lady, 90 years old, yeah, she's going to have a baby, and she's going to be your son. And it's going to be through him. I'm going to have a covenant with him and his children after him for everlasting covenant, he says. And I'm gonna make your nation, make you a great nation on the earth. It's gonna be numbered beyond like the dust on the earth. You know what I mean? And so when he gets him up there and he says, "Kill him," it shows Abraham's faith in God. It's not only just about the kid, but it's the faith that God, the promise that God has made to him. He believes God. And that's why that story is so powerful. It's not just him sacrificing or willing to sacrifice the child. It's the fact that he's willing. He put it all on line because he trusts the promise that God made to him. Amen. It's not just the kid. The kid is the promise. You follow what I'm saying? That makes sense. I know I'm like I'm all high right now, but like when it hit me, it's like wow, it blows me away because Isaac is the promise. You see what I'm saying? And God is telling him to put the knife to Isaac, but his trust in God's promise is strong. So he's willing to do whatever it is that God told him to do. Because it's not, he loved the kid, but he knows God is going to keep his promise. So he's willing to do whatever it is, even if it means stick the kid, but he knows, that's why he said we're going to come up and we're going to come back down, because he knows that God is going to do something with this kid, or he's going to make something happen, because the promise, he is the promise. You see what I'm saying? And God gonna keep it. You follow what I'm saying? I don't know, man. I don't know, man. Yeah, man. I'm not gonna say it. That's powerful, man. Woo.
It's powerful.
I know, but I'm just saying. You know, when you think about it, I don't know. I'm all like, man, it's crazy because it's powerful. Because so when you talk about his only begotten, turn over to chapter 25. Genesis chapter 25, we done. Sarah dies. Says 25. Then Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah, and she bare him Zimran and Jokshan and Midian and Ishbak and Shua. So that's 6 kids, 6 sons. That this other lady, he gets another wife after Sarah dies. That's 6 more kids he has. So like I say, Abraham don't have just one kid. I mean, that's 8. I mean, Ishmael is still alive at the time. Isaac is still alive. That's 8 kids, 8 boys. You read Midian. When you read the Midianites, this is their father. They are descendants of Abraham. A lot of people don't know that. But like, the Midianites are descendants of Abraham. They are the seed of Abraham, physically speaking. The Ephraimites are descendants of Abraham. A lot of people that you read about in the Bible are descendants of Abraham. And that makes it even more powerful because God has only a covenant with only one people. It's the Israelites, because of the promise that he made with Isaac, because he's the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. And when you think about, so when you understand that, that's how he is the only begotten, because he's one of a kind. He got way more sons, way more children, but Isaac is one of a kind because he is the son of promise. He is the son of covenant. You know what I mean? And so that's how he's only begotten, the only one like him. He can't be replaced. It ain't no others. It's only him. That's it. God look out for the other people, but this is the one. This is the son of promise. You know what I mean? And so when you think about Jesus, and I'm done. You think about Jesus, God, we're adopted into God's family, but Jesus will always be God's only begotten. Amen. We're called the sons and daughters of God, but God will always have only one begotten. That's it. And that's Jesus Christ. He's one of a kind. Yes. There are many of us. And I don't mean he don't love us. He loves us. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why he laid down the son's life. Is to have a relation with us. But always remember, when you think about Jesus Christ, he's one of a kind. He is God's only begotten son. You see what I'm saying? And that's why he's due the honor and praise that's due him. And the fact that God's willing to sacrifice his only begotten, that's powerful. That's powerful, man. And that's a lesson for another. We'll do that another time. So I'm sorry. I got you, bro. You got your hand up? Did you have something? I know. I'm sorry. I went. Yeah, I'm sorry. So.
No, I was yawning earlier.
Okay. I was like, let me try to go ahead and brush your teeth.
Great lesson, Brother Ham. Great lesson. All the saints who participated. God bless y'all. I just want to read one verse, Hebrews 11:19, showing that as Brother Hamilton has taught, it wasn't Abraham's heart. Accounting, the word accounting means to reckon and take inventory. Abraham, as Brother Hamilton said, before he went up, he had already taken inventory, and this is what he took inventory of, that God was able to raise him up. He knew, I'm going to kill Isaac, and God's going to raise him up. So Abraham already had that in his heart. And he said, even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. So in a metaphor, Abraham did receive him from the dead because he had to kill him. So God rescued him from the dead like he's going to rescue us. But Abraham already knew, as Brother Hamilton said, the boy is going to die and be raised up from the dead because he know God can do it. Accounting means he reckoned in his heart. Well, God going to raise from the dead, as the brother taught, because he knew, I'm going to kill him. Man.
He has to do it because God has made a promise and God is going to keep his promise. He, like I said, he got it. You know what I mean? He got it. And so, I said, this lesson is tough, man, because you're talking about this is 20-something years. And we like some of us been in church for a long time. And some of us know people who's been in church for a long time. And if you know, anytime people's faith start to wane, their understanding starts to get shaky. They start looking for different things. But it's God made a promise to us for eternal life. And but you got to live the life and make it there. It may be 30, maybe 40, maybe 50 years, maybe 60 years. But God his promises don't change. At some point we have to get it. To make it to heaven, the way is already paved. All you have to do is stay the course. And the promise is guaranteed. No matter what comes your way, nothing changes the promise. It's God guarantees his promise. It's like insurance on a bank. It's guaranteed, man. Your money, you gonna get the cash. Anyway, that's it. That's the lesson. I'm done. I appreciate everybody. Give the patience for everybody. Finish the lesson.